Make sure to subscribe to the podcast and to leave us a good review. The more reviews we get, the bigger our audience gets, and the bigger our audience gets, the better this podcast will become. Hey, Ricky, let us know ways people can get in touch with us.
Sure, Tim. We've got Twitter, which is @thirdpartyrep, REP. We've got Instagram @thirdparty.repair. Facebook, facebook.com/thirdpartyrepair, and email thirdpartyrepair@gmail.com.
Okay, here we are, Third Party Repair Podcast. It's been way too long between drinks. Ricky, how you going?
Yeah, not bad, Tim. It always does feel a long time, but my goodness, quite a lot has happened since we've last spoken. I don't really know where to start, mate. I don't really know where to start.
I know. Well, so right now, or at least it's just sort of ended, I think, that the big tech hearing in the USA where the 4 big tech companies have been interviewed in front of Congress and with a specific endeavour to find out more and dig deeper into the monopolistic tactics that they seem to take to take under their wing in their companies respectively. And I'm really excited to actually, with you, have a good talk about that. I'm going to go off and do a whole lot of research. I've noticed it's about 5.5 hours long. So we've got a bit of homework to do, but we should talk about that, right?
Yeah, I think if we do some proper research, we'll watch the whole thing. As part of this hearing, not only were they answering questions in front of Congress, which spanned lots of industries, not just ours. Ours is such a small part of this. The monopolistic tactics they use across multiple industries. But as part of this as well, they had to release internal documents which hadn't been seen before. So I think not only listening to the actual hearing, but also trying to delve into the documents and trying to pick out important ones that are relevant to us. Or that are relevant to other industries that apply to us. I think that would be good. And I'd like to just have a quick reference today to an article from Kyle Weens of iFixit, which we will provide a link for in the description of this podcast, where Kyle has gone through the internal documents that were released as part of this hearing, and he's picked out a couple of ones which are quite relevant to the repair industry specifically. And yeah, they're quite good. I mean, have you had a chance to look at that yet, Tim?
I have had a brief read over it. There's some sections there that I think it's so this actually came from, I think, in the hearing, Tim Cook made this publicly available. Is that right?
I'm not sure.
Sorry, that's what the information. I think that's the information that Kyle has actually gathered. Well, he's got that from that hearing. Tim Cook's made them available, or at least his people have as a part of this whole process that they're going through.
Yeah, I think they were all asked to provide some internal documentation. So this just forms part of that. And although there's a absolute treasure trove of information to go through, and most of it won't be relevant to the repair industry, Kyle has picked out a couple of bits he's found that are, and he's written a really good article about it. And it includes a piece that isn't from this internal documentation that supports it as well. So it's quite good. Yeah. I mean, there's two bits in it that I'd like to talk about. But one of them is Apple before I say this, it's important to think, and I mean it's important for us to realise as well, you and myself, Tim, when we speak about Apple, when we talk on this podcast, we talk about Apple as if they are one entity and it's pushing in one direction. But it is good to remember that Apple is made up of thousands of great-minded people, intelligent people, and they do not all think the same way. It's impossible to have that amount of people within a group and have them all think the same way. When we talk about Apple and the direction repair's going in, up until seeing these documents, Apple looked like they were single-minded and they were pushing in one direction. But what Kyle has released is information which shows that they're not. So a couple of the things that I'd like to talk about. The first thing is in 2019, Apple on their website, they put up 2 service manuals for the 21 and 27 inch 2019 iMacs. So they put the service manuals on their website so that they were freely downloadable by anyone. And iFixit, Whitson Gordon reached out to Apple for comment on this, and Apple did not reply. In the article from Carl, there is further information where Apple discussed this internally without replying to Whitson, but they did not. They did not reply to this. And as far as I'm aware, these service manuals, they're still available now. No subsequent model service manuals are available, but these two are still available today on Apple's own website to download. So that was quite an interesting thing. And to think that they didn't reply to him, but they did discuss it internally, and the things that they did discuss, it shows that there are a differ of opinion within Apple themselves, and it's probably something that we want to go into more detail with in a further episode when we delve into this deeper. But it was just an interesting read. So I'd recommend anyone that can go into the description of this and tap the link or copy and paste it into their browser and read it. It's a really good article from Kyle.
Does it kind of sound like to you that Apple is... It's a difficult internal struggle that they probably have operationally to be able to represent a positive sort of outlook for right to repair whilst doing it reluctantly almost? And so how does a company made up of so many moving parts, where on the one hand they're trying to manage their public profile of being green, environmentally friendly, of being a good, virtuous company in this day and age, socially aware and understanding of their impact in the world, they want to support the right to repair, I guess. If you were to say, do you want to do that? And my assumption is the answer would come back, yes. And then they go about, okay, so how do we go about doing that? And then that's where it gets confusing and gets a little bit difficult to swallow, as far as I'm concerned, based on the specifics of how they design their hardware, their operating systems. This is a difficult thing for them to manage. And it seems that in this article that Kyle's done, which is fantastic, I think that's really, really good work that he's done there. It's great that we have that to reference. It seems that they are confused a little bit as to how they're going to approach this together. As I guess a unified force as a company.
Well, they're not judging by these internal documents. They're not unified. And I mean, if you look at the service guides that they're creating, there's a team of people here that are creating these service guides, and they're putting time, love, and effort into making these. And they exist for other models. They're not publicly available, but they exist internally for other models. I can't imagine that if I was going to work every day to work on making the serviceability of my products easier and better, and literally that was my job to do that, and then to hear the news and hear articles coming out where Apple are actively fighting against right to repair legislation. I mean, it contradicts your job every day. It would be like a builder spending all year building a house, and then your boss coming along and knocking the house down and going, there, start again. It would be a bit. If I was part of this team, it would be demoralising to be doing this great work with documents that could be freely available for everyone and diagnostics tools that are referenced that could be freely available for everyone, but then having someone there that's just going, oh, hang on a minute. We need to keep this to ourselves and create our authorised work, So
that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's interesting. One thing with this article is, though, Carl ends it with Apple could easily turn one of their biggest political liabilities into a win. Their independent repair program already has all the elements required to comply with a right to repair law, and publishing the service manuals isn't a hurdle. They've already done it. I don't see this. I don't see how the IRP program could be heralded as right to repair. And I think Kyle might be getting a little bit excited with that there. But it's a step in the right direction. I'll give him that.
Well, and that's probably a good segue into the next bit we wanted to address, which is the other news of the rollout of the IRP program in Europe and Canada. They've gone outside of the USA now. The USA has had that for the better half at least, or sorry, I should say probably about a year. And now they've just gone to Europe and Canada. Now you're in Europe for now.
Well, it's a touchy subject, Tim, but yeah, I'm in the UK and we're in Europe, I guess, yeah.
Right, and so now this has become available there. Do you want to let us know how that's looking? That's only the last couple of weeks or so.
Yeah, so IRP in the USA, we spoke on this before. We didn't know anyone that was enrolled. They have got volumes enrolled. It's at least triple figures in the USA. So people are signing up to this in the USA. It is expanding their authorised network. I don't know if it's going to expand it fast enough. I don't know what they're going to do, but it's working. It's now launched in Europe and Canada, so it's available in the UK. Part of the whole process is to sign a non-disclosure agreement with Apple where you do not discuss this type of thing, and I think it just represents part of the course for Apple with expanding their authorized network, which they've put a lot of resources and time into, and they obviously believe in, and they're just trying to expand that to service their customers, which is obviously a flaw with them at the moment. It is key to note that during COVID at the moment, not all of their authorised service providers are open and operational, at least not in the UK. And I mean, it is even with IRP or as an IASP, an authorised service provider, they're still independent business owners. So, I mean, during COVID, if there was an authorised service provider they own their own business, although they're authorised, they're not bound to open their store any given day. They're more than able to shut their store, especially during a pandemic such as right now. So I think IRP times in nicely with COVID, with authorised service providers being closed. And it's good to see Apple taking repairability for their customers seriously. Whether it'll help or whether it'll work or not, I mean, time will tell.
Is the independent repair program, is the timing with that now in Europe and Canada something to do with COVID, do you think?
I think it was always going to happen. I can't confirm. It's just opinion. I think I know there's authorised service providers here that are closed. So I know that with service providers being closed, that there's less places for existing customers to get service. So it makes absolute logical sense for them to expand a program that they've already proved works. In other regions, they've already done the nuts and bolts of it. I mean, at the end of the day, if they've got a parts distributor that can distribute the parts to Europe and to Canada, then this is just recreating what they've done in America already. So it's just part of the course. I'm not sure whether COVID has anything to do with it or not, but I mean, personally, I think yes. But yeah. It doesn't matter either way. It's just them expanding their authorised network, which is something that they were always going to do. It's why IRP exists.
Is this something that you'd get on board with?
As a businessman and as a business owner, my eyes and ears are always open to working with anyone, absolutely anyone, even my fiercest rivals. So I don't believe in burning bridges. Whether IRP is for me or not, I don't know yet. I'm not sure.
That remains to be seen. Likewise, I'm interested to see if and when it comes to Australia, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that in the future. iOS 14 beta, stopping display notifications and introducing battery issues potentially. There's some rumours about that. This is news to me. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I haven't done too much digging on this either. So the battery issues, I'll do that one first. There's Chinese sellers who are warning that if you update to the iOS 14 beta, your battery won't charge with one of their batteries. Now, if this is, I don't know whether this is related to the battery unique serial number. I can't recreate that and prove that. So that leads me to believe that it may be related to not an original flex or original chip on the battery board. I believe this is more related to a aftermarket Chinese battery board and the operating system not speaking to it. So this may be an issue if you use aftermarket batteries. It would be worth checking with your supplier. That's as much information as I've got right now on the batteries. And the display notification, so this is the notification that says unable to confirm whether this display is genuine or not, even if it is a genuine display. Now, I've got from a fairly reliable source, I haven't managed to recreate it, but I've got it from a fairly reliable source, that on the latest iOS 14 beta, if you fit an original display that's not the one that was originally paired to the logic board, this notification no longer appears. I haven't managed to recreate it. I'm looking to, before we next speak, I should think, but I would be very surprised if this has happened, because this forms the crux of, I mean, this forms one of the main reasons why they're in front of Congress because of monopolistic tactics.
Exactly.
So I think this it would be surprised if they veered from this direction without being pushed.
Unless it's just because it's the beta version and they've just gone, oh, oops. And then at the last minute, they'll make sure they get it back in there.
If you look at prior beta versions, this is what they do. They bake in small little things like notifications, like ambient light, like True Tone, and they tinker with it through the betas. It's quite interesting when you go through them and you see what they're doing. They tinker with it, and nothing comes on the release notes about these things generally. They just tinker and they play with it, which is why it's so important, because they do with software updates. They can just go, there you go. And suddenly you got an issue.
That does seem strange then, doesn't it? Because it seems almost too good to be true. Like they're backing down on why they actually had that in the first place for no apparent reason that we can see. So it would be interesting to see if that does... Right, there you go. I know. Yeah, you cynic, you.
That's me. That's me.
Completely but completely irrational position to take. The next stuff we want to talk about, aftermarket factory. This is more hearsay, possibly. It's an aftermarket factory in China that's been shut down potentially for tax evasion.
Yeah, it's just a quick one. It's one that was in the Facebook repair groups. It's the owners of the factory allegedly were evading tax, so the government has shut them down. I mean, the wholesale suppliers are more clued up with this. I don't buy the aftermarket displays, so I'm not too in tune with it. It's just something to talk on for people that do buy aftermarket displays. This factory was shut down. It was a few weeks ago now, so. I mean, with the factory, with it being shut, I don't know how long it was shut for or whether it's even operational now yet, but that would have reduced supply coming out of Shenzhen for the repair market in the West. So it may, if there's less supply, simple supply and demand, it can force the prices to increase, or the quality to decrease on the other panels that are coming out, which is stuff that right now we are beginning to see from domestic suppliers.
Very, very true. Another one here, Hong Kong unrest with the new security law and supposed fresh COVID outbreak. It's likely to have an effect on the supply of parts throughout our industry, in price increases, things like that. So more speculation there. That seems
more speculation, but it seems quite reasonable. And I mean, if you tie that in with the aftermarket factory being shut down, it's all pointing to one thing, and that will be less supply, higher prices. And I don't think that's something that our domestic suppliers can really control. It's just something that China are going through at the moment with COVID, with what's going on in Hong Kong. So it's just that's just something to bear in mind. If you are a repairer that does not refurbish, if you source parts, it may be worth stocking up a little bit. And I mean, this is rumoured to be going on in the future for the next few months. We're not talking days or weeks. It's months long. So it would be worth, if you are a repairer, potentially stocking up right now before you get affected by price increases and lack of supply.
Yeah, and some great work that you've done, particularly, which I pay a lot of attention to, and I honestly feel thankful for that you do so much work on this, is that you have brought really, really to so many people's attention the non-compatibility issues or compatibility issues on some of the recent touch flex ICs. So this is to do with you might have a screen, an OEM screen at least, that you've now put onto a phone, and it seems to test okay. And then down the track, you might have returns, and you might think, oh, well, this is just some sort of fault that only showed itself after the testing that was done prior to handing it to the customer. This is one scenario of many by the sound of it. That then brings about people thinking that there's actually a fault in that, but it's actually some sort of compatibility issue that you've pretty much proven based on what you can maybe run us through now. And also we want to have a talk about some of the implications there within our industry of that.
Sure. Happening. So, I mean, last time we spoke, I sort of didn't want to talk on this too much, but it's really quite interesting that since we spoke about this on the podcast and I put this out into the industry, the people that you'd expect to take it most seriously, and the people I called on last time, were the wholesalers, and they are completely MIA on this. I mean, no comment, nothing at all. So this is either completely new, fresh news to them, and they're doing some research independently or collectively to find out whether it's true or not. Or they're going to bury their heads in the sand and pretend it's not an issue and let their customers deal with returns and deal with touchscreen issues coming back when they don't need to. Which, if you're a customer and you're buying from these wholesalers and you're dealing with touch issues, your wholesaler could 100% fix that. So the issue that you say about the phone going out okay and coming back with touchscreen issues, that's one variable. Another variable is you attach the display to the phone, and the display touch doesn't work. Half of the touch works, half of it doesn't. I've got a YouTube channel where I demonstrate this, and I've deliberately put these videos on the YouTube channel to demonstrate the issues, so that people have reference points in the past to see these issues, so that in the future they can reference them and they know. So it's the end of July now. It's been 2 whole months now that we've been IC swapping every single display that comes through. And last time we spoke, and I told you about this, we'd had one return, which was the XS Max, which was a complete,
that's right,
weird one. From then until now, we've had no more returns for touch issues. It's completely nuked the touch issues. And the quality of displays that we're using are the same quality of displays we were using in prior months, where we were seeing random touch issues on returns and after iOS updates. So it's completely nuked the touch issue returns for us.
And
completely gone.
You're not seeing the half thing either, which is the other variable. You're not seeing that at all, obviously, right? So it's all gone. Yeah.
All gone.
So this is as good enough as evidence that there is some sort of compatibility issue. And again, we did speak about this before, but the particularly sneaky thing about it for us is that there's no notification that we're dealing with is now coming up. It's just these random, weird, very, very strange touch issues that often would reflect a faulty part. That's the other thing, is this, it could easily be seen as that. And I think that you'd agree, it seems like that's exactly what the majority of people are doing. So you've got to imagine there's a whole lot of screens out there that are being sent back to suppliers, being thrown in the bin by refurbishers, and all of this along the way, which is just crazy. And it just blows my mind that this isn't something that's just viral, so to speak, within everyone in our community. You know?
So I think a bit of it might be it's burying your head in the sands from more than just the wholesalers. I mean, it's going to be repairers as well. They don't want to do this. This adds an extra load of time on top of each screen repair. So at the moment, you've got screens coming in. Your screen repairs coming in, you're getting them in, you got the part, you bang it on, you're good to go, you're out the door, you're happy. This completely changes the whole dynamics of the way that you do repairs. I've had to completely change the whole process of us for screen repairs. It's a lot longer now, but we don't get returns. I'd much rather spend longer on each device than get returns. Now, where does it go from here in the future? Technically, repairers need to be able to swap the ICs over. Wholesalers can do some things to make it easier for them. They could supply screens without ICs on the flex cable. They could do that. I don't think that the Chinese factories where they buy these screens from, I don't think they'd manufacture those. Not unless there was suddenly a massive influx or a supplier took a punt on getting thousands of these displays in like it. But that could happen. If that happened, then a lot of other repairers wouldn't get this issue either. But since we last spoke about it, it has been interesting just to watch it play out. And people complain to suppliers of these types of issues publicly, and then there not be any talk on it. And I haven't yet had anyone else that does this that has said to me, Ricky, I listened to that, I tried it, I've had no returns, it's been absolutely great. Like, no one's tried it. No one's giving it a go. They're hearing it. It's like, oh yeah, that's great. Oh yeah, I need to get into that. But actually saying it and doing it are two different things.
So is this something to do with, if we were to group sort of 3 different kinds of repair stores, you'd have repair stores that don't refurbish and only use aftermarket screens, and then maybe you've got, so to speak, repair stores that only do business-to-business refurbishment of LCDs. And then you've got potentially businesses that do a combination of both. It seems that maybe that there's the first column is very large. If you had to have a pie chart here, the biggest pie by far, and I could be wrong here, but I'm just sort of throwing it out there. The biggest pie by a piece of the pie by far would be the first section, which is the ones that don't refurb and potentially only use aftermarket parts. And so that's the next thing, is this doesn't seem to be an issue at all for aftermarket screens. And so this could just be simply just evidence of that. So the people who hear this go, oh, look, that's not me. I only use aftermarket screens anyway, so who cares? Move on. The B2B guys who do refurbishing, I mean, that's not me. That seems like it's just dead end. Then, how can you?
I don't understand. I don't understand it. I don't understand why you still do it. The wholesalers and refurbishers especially will be seeing touchscreen returns where there's no issues. There's no issues with them. But I mean, I don't think right now. I don't think Apple wants people using good quality refurbished parts because that competes with them. I think Apple would be happier if people were using generic aftermarket parts. And I think to spell it out really clearly, they would be happy for people to use generic aftermarket parts until IRP and the authorised network they've got is big enough to sustain the customer base. And then there won't be any need for people to use generic. And I mean, then it'll be a cat and mouse game, a bit like jailbreaking was a few years ago, where they release a software update or they release a cloud-based update and then it's patching it and going from there. So it might be that your customers need to come back and you need to recalibrate the screen or you need to do... I mean, I don't know where that's going to go like that. I watch very closely with jailbreaking and how that played out, and repair seems to be heading towards the same type of thing. So right now, if you're using aftermarket parts and you're listening to this thinking, you guys are crazy, this is never going to happen...
There's a lot of people exactly like that.
It's a lot of people, but I tell you, I've spoken on this now for 2-3 years publicly, and it's really funny because as time goes on, everything that I say and everything I've said, the whole vision that I've got, because I can see where Apple are going with this, the whole vision that I've got has just played out in front of everyone. And no matter how much more the line gets walked, it's like no, that's never going to happen. It's just constantly the same thing. Anyway, we said we were going to be upbeat this time, Tim. You dragged me in a hole of talking about how they're going to take over the world. I don't want to be doing this today.
Well, listen to it. So what I'm looking at here is, big tech having to answer for their monopolistic tactics. We've got here the aftermarket factories in China shutting down to do with tax evasion. We've got COVID-related stuff. We've got... it's hard. It's not really been... The news is not exactly sunshine and lollipops, really, is it, unfortunately?
Sadly not. The news never is it? Let's be honest.
No, that's right. And you know what? A lot of this stuff is us informing people within our world of important stuff that they need to know about. And so
I'd like to flip it.
Gets a bit abrasive.
This IC stuff that I've put out here, let's flip it. That is actually, the fact that that's even out there is really positive and promising. And if you're a repairer that replaces screens, or you're a wholesaler that supplies screens, or you're a refurbisher that supplies screens, swapping the IC is important. So,
right, it's an opportunity. There's going to be a lot of questions. Let's just think what they would possibly be. One of them is going to be obvious, like, let's say somebody who's never done any of that kind of work before of actually swapping the IC.
Yeah.
Is that something that they could pick up relatively easily?
Well, with the right equipment and the right drive, yeah. But if you're not bothered about, if repair is not in your blood in a way that you feel passionate about it and you enjoy doing it every day, then you're not going to have the passion and drive to actually work it out. Whole reason I have is because I go to work every day and it's like a hobby. I love what I do, but not everyone is going to have that drive. But I think this is just part of the whole consolidation thing that we've been heading towards for quite some time, with the expansion of the franchise networks in the USA, with the rollout of the IRP program. It's all just consolidation of the repair industry. I mean, we're not small anymore. We're quite big, and if you don't keep up with this type of stuff, you're going to get left behind. But there you go. If you want to stop touchscreen issues, swap the ICs. If your wholesalers aren't supplying you with good enough screens to swap ICs on, tell them and make it happen.
Right, you heard it here first. Listen to the man. He knows what he's talking about. Is there anything else you want to go through, or should we call it a day? That's probably a nice place to leave it, and to let everyone know that the next episode, we're going to be really diving deeper into the 5.5 hour hearing of the big tech companies, and we're going to give everyone a bit of a rundown on our thoughts on that and the important stuff within there. It should be next week as our plan at this stage. Anything you want to add before we call it there?
No,
Rick?
I'm good. I'm absolutely good. It'll just be interesting to see what happens between now and then that we need to catch up on.
I know, right? Okay, cool. Let's leave it there. It was good talking as always, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
You too, mate. Take care.